We have a third speaker, and that is Sister Rasika Pieris of Colombo. She belongs to the Colombo province of the Sisters of Holy Family in Sri Lanka. Sister Rasika Pieris. Yeah, she is already there. Welcome, Sister Rasika. We are ready to listen to you.
Good morning to all those who are part of the efforts of making the Church in Asia as Church of Asia, and I would like to extend my sincere gratitude for the invitation extended. My presentation consists of context in which I am making the proposals for the Church in Asia to be Church of Asia based on the following concerns, and finally reiterating on Asian praxis as the locus of theologizing and Christian living. Socio-political and religio-cultural traditions of a particular region can have a strong and enduring impact on the lives of people, as it does in Asia, where women have made remarkable progress in recent years and the transformation is possible. Asian women, who comprise more than a quarter of the world's population, are not a monolithic group of people. Yet, oppression of women is a major form of oppression in Asia. Suffering, though a common reality, is closely connected with sexism, classism, racism, militarism, and colonialism that are interlinked. But women of Asia suffer more than men. Lest we forget that the tradition of the Church deprived God's call of being women to exercise the call of God for the Church and society, including pastoral ministry and church leadership. For Gustavo Gutierrez, the poor has two key elements. First one, the poor are the victims of oppressive and unjust social structures. And secondly, the poor are the agents of change if they are equipped with skills and hope to create new horizons. Similarly, the poorest of the poor, the women of Asia, are not mere victims of an oppressive system, but are the social agents with the authority to transform unjust social and religious structures through resisting and becoming. Resisting to remain victims of traditions and rituals that prevent them being the agents of social transformation is a new norm that women of Asia adopted in order to experience liberation. They are the agency of representation, being the persons that they are called to be. The struggle for an equal society where they shall live with freedom and dignity instead of awaiting for the religious promise of freedom after death. The first point, theology from the perspective of women. Being the majority in the Church of Asia, women face marginalization through the power structures inclusive of the Church due to misogyny within the Christian tradition and notions of purity and taboos in Asian religious traditions. For a woman to reject what the dominating structures dictate is a taboo in the Asian context. What we have in many countries in Asia is a culture of suffering within a culture of domination. In the Church, there is an extensive disagreement on women's status under various historical conditions due to social and religious construction of gender. Problematizing traditional gender roles is considered feminist. Hence, argued, feminism is a production of modern cultures which is contrary to biblical values. A woman's nonconformist approach to social status quo could be painted as unwomanly or deprived of woman qualities, because struggle for women's liberation has been criticized by the patriarchal system as both Western and bourgeois, for neither is applicable nor desirable in the context of Asia. Essentializing theology from the perspective of women is also depatriarchalization of theologizing in Asia. Any theology from Asia that does not touch the multi-layered oppression of Asian women is limited in scope and cannot liberate any person in Asia, because unless oppressed women are liberated, no one can be liberated. No one possesses the truth. Truth possesses the truth. Theology has to emerge from the historical reality of the people in a context. By claiming the power of naming, the Asian women transform mainstream theologies. Hopefully, this process of producing a new way of doing theology seeks to correct and complete the one-dimensional tunnel vision of society and of the organized religion of Asia. It generates a new way of thinking about faith, starting from reality and experience. This demands that the Church listen to the alternative stories women offer in the struggle for liberation. Church also needs to find new ways of doing theology together with men and women, priests, laity, and religious in different social contexts. Second point, doing theology as Asian women. For Rasika Pieris, a theology is not a rational explanation of our faith, but something emerging within a context of people, a dynamic involvement of a faith community. Hardly offering liberating alternatives to the situations of the oppressed, traditional theology does not recognize the struggle for freedom as a part of salvation. It is not correlated with the present experience. The absence of the social or structural dimension of sinfulness within the interpretation of sin in the institutional Christian understanding of salvation scarcely recognizes political liberation as an essential element for salvation. This understanding of soteriology paves the way to weave in human beings, especially women, who are the most oppressed in Asian society, as the passive recipients of the results of unjust systems. Alternative society building is a dream for many women where no hierarchical structures prevail. Therefore, forming alternative societal structures like the Christian women grassroots movement becomes essential. In the Church of Asia, there is a need to listen to women's experience, and women need to feel that they have been heard and have made a contribution to the life of the Church. When lived praxis becomes the axis for theologizing, the lived experiences of women cannot be excluded. The struggle of the women to resist oppressive structures open new avenues for reconstructing the existing theologies in Asia. The experience of poorest of the poor is an influential and essential source of deconstructing the theologies that have long been sustained by a conception of men's power over women. Third point, rethinking of the image of God that gives life to women. The maleness attributed to God or Christ is a stumbling block for an inclusive paradigm of the church. In the reification of God as male, the God symbol is monopolized and man becomes the norm of full humanity. The action of making the symbol of the male God synonymous with power undergirds the hierarchical male church in which men are definers of codes and women are neurotic consumers. The concept of contingency of particularity as trajectory of the incarnation. In their struggle for liberation, many women found new names and places for God who empowers them resist suffering that is contrary to the traditional teachings that emphasizes the masculine attributes to God. If women are to see themselves as creatures made in the divine image, that is primary identity as the image of God. The language used to speak of God must reflect more than male symbolism, because language is not politically neutral, but rather serves as a tool of either or oppression, life-giving. Fourth one, new consciousness in the women and the church. Reading from androcentric perspective, texts such as the Bible, the prayer of the church, and liturgical lectionaries in the church does not affirm the equal dignity of women. Another remarkable factor for stagnation in affirming the dignity and mission of women in the church is the internalization of patriarchy by women. The system that affects all aspects of life of women and undermines their personhood in subtle ways. Women admit to accepting mankind, brethren, sons of God, he, his, and him as being inclusive of both genders. This portrays that women are subsumed by or no more than shadows of men. Raising awareness of the dignity and role of women in the church challenges the status quo in ecclesiology and theology. Awakening to the equal dignity of women and men include acknowledgement of the God-given creation and baptismal dignity of the image of God. In consciousness raising, both women and men must take cognizance of the fact that the equality of believers, translating into shared and equal participation of women and men in all aspects of church life, is according to God's will. From hermeneutics of suspicion, women may draw inspiration and support from reclaiming the history of her story of their foremothers and foresisters in the Bible, whose voices have been muted or even silenced. Since patriarchal structures in both church and society have the potential for transformation, consciousness raising in conversion requires exposure of the overt and subtle ways in which men and women are entangled in the sin of patriarchy. Both women and men dream for the new humanity in Christ, and this could be reached through dialogue with women. Fifth point, women as full decision-making citizens. Elizabeth Susler-Fiorenza defines Ecclesia of Women as a democratic congress of full decision-making citizens, while highlighting democratic equality, citizenship, and decision-making power as essential elements of the notion of ecclesia. The vision of the ecclesia of women is to struggle for change and liberation of God's life-giving and transforming power of the community in the midst of the structural sin of the kyriacal powers of exploitation and dehumanization. Sister Fiorenza proposes an alternative magisterium of ecclesia of women as the locus or place of divine revelation besides the Bible or the tradition of the patriarchal church. It would become a norm for Christian theology in which the preferential option for the poor becomes a preferential option for women, especially poor women. She speaks further about the same notion of ecclesia of women as a discipleship of equals, while reinterpreting the experience of the early Christian community who lived in solidarity from below. Within the discipleship of equals, all are learners and there are no masters. Each one learns from the other, which is the new paradigm of the alternative magisterium, the ecclesia of women, and the norm for Christian theology. Sixth point, learning from the other. In the view of Rasika Pieris, each religion is a unique language and idiom with which the human mind in a given context has expressed its yearning for and its experience of integral liberation. Hence, in speaking about the liberation Christology of religious pluralism, he draws attention to two imperatives. First one, fidelity to what is unique to Christian faith. And second one, fairness towards every other religion's distinctive otherness, because the ultimate goal of every religion is the liberation of every human person and the whole human person, a soteriological absolute. Living in a religiously pluralistic continent, many Asian feminist theologians have found their own heritage as a new style to present the rich and multi-layered theological voices through symbols, images, songs, dances, stories, with the aim of full liberation for all. The multiplicity of religious heritage that exists and interacts within and among Asians provides resources for a paradigmatic shift in the struggle for liberation. The interreligious and inter-ethnic gathering, dialogue, sharing, and worship extends the solidarity of both men and women for the common goal of working together for liberation. Seventh and the last point, coming to the understanding that men of quality are not threatened by women's call for equality. Realization of admitting that liberation of women is integral to the liberation of the whole of humanity is pivotal. The call for equality poses threat. For Henriette Katuku, it is caused by fear of loss of status, fear of what will happen when patriarchal structures mutate, but basically fear of the other. Overcoming male domination is a challenge for women in Asia while recognizing it as a sin, because patriarchy in the Asian context is not just a matter of male supremacy and male-centeredness, but also a socio-political and religio-cultural system of control and domination involving powerful over powerless. In the process of affirming the full humanity of women, the recognition of how a woman's particular context shapes her experience of oppression is not sufficient. It demands alternative ways of resisting elements that support patriarchy. The stereotyped Asian social landscape must change. Conclusion. The challenge that remains a concern for the Church of Asia is to distance herself from the colonial roots and its representations and make a paradigm shift from Eurocentrism to Asian centrism. Eurocentrism does not fully echo the Asian centric ideals of interdependence and interrelatedness, which are core values of Asian centricity. Nevertheless, being Asian centric does not relate to being contrary to Eurocentrism nor cultural separatism, rather using Asian praxis as hermeneutical lenses. Asian praxis demands moving from suppressionism to ecumenism, without which the making sense of the Church of Asia will be a futile exercise. Mimetic histories of leadership model that is vertical may not suit as the context demands an inclusive structure that is horizontal, that ensures the participation of people from all walks of life. For the Church of Asia to choose the preferential option for the women is ensuring the preference God adopted by taking the side of the oppressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sister Rasika Pieris. Being a human rights activist, Sister has dealt with the theme of the liberation of women, especially poor women, in detail. Many of the analysis is really thought-provoking and also as a challenge for bishops and the leaders in the society to deal with. But you said that the poor are the agents of change. These are really very, very important statements. And you said about cultural domination of men in Asia. And of course, we know that the Asian culture is different from the Western culture, and there are many things to be corrected. And you have well studied this question of equality of women in the church, and also the role that they have to play in the church and the society. I think the bishops will surely take your paper or your presentation seriously and will discuss this matter in our own dioceses and take appropriate approaches in this matter. So that we are very grateful to you for having presented the problem and also proposed so many areas of action for us. And we thank you in the name of all the bishops. Thank you very much. May God bless you. Now let us spend 2 minutes in prayer. We will be talking to them now. Up to 15. Okay. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit,